Hello everyone, it's me Rio Bevel here, and today I'll be going over my RPG collection. And I just gotta say, at first I did plan on just showing off my whole collection in one video, but I thought it'd just be much better for me if I just showcased my whole collection making multiple videos instead. And not only that, I decided to categorize my collection based on console, and the console I chose to show for today is the Gamecube. Now, the reason why I chose the Gamecube was because even though it really didn't have that many RPGs, I do feel that what they did have were a lot of great gems that a lot of people missed out on. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into my Gamecube RPG collection. And the first game I want to show you guys is obviously the legendary Final Fantasy X. Okay, I kid. The first game I really want to show you guys is Tales of Symphonia. But still, Final Fantasy X and Tales of Symphonia are similar to each other, not really in terms of gameplay, but really in the fact that just as how Final Fantasy X was a premier RPG for the PS2, Tales of Symphonia was a premier RPG for the Gamecube. And in some ways, Tales of Symphonia was more important to Gamecube owners than was Final Fantasy X to PS2 owners, because the Gamecube was really an RPG-starved system. Fortunately, Tales of Symphonia really did give Gamecube owners what they wanted, which was a huge epic RPG with a ton of stuff to do. The game had a very solid story, with some really interesting themes. The characters were also very well done, some of them having really good chemistry. And not only that, since the game is an action RPG, the battles are fun, fast-paced, but they're also strategic as well. And while the game did sell relatively well, and the game also had some very positive reviews, I feel that Tales of Symphonia isn't mentioned too much, especially when people mention what were the best RPGs of that generation. Most will mention Final Fantasy X, Knights of the Old Republic, but not many will mention Tales of Symphonia, and I do think it's a shame. And I really do think that this game is almost as good as Final Fantasy X or Knights of the Old Republic, if not better in some aspects. I just want to say this is a fantastic RPG and I highly recommend you pick this up. And I heard it's also coming out on the PS3, so please check that out as well.
That's that.
Now, the next game in my Gamecube RPG collection is Baten Kaitos, Eternal Wings and the Lost Ocean, which is a very interesting name to say the least. But I gotta say, I don't feel like I can judge this game properly. And the reason is because I sort of gave up on this game way too early. I got easily distracted and I played something else instead. And the main reason why I gave up on this game was because the battle system didn't really warm up to me and I sort of did give it a second chance. Now, the game uses a card-based battle system which has a lot of customization and it's really deep as well. The problem was that it's a really complex system and you really need to pay attention to it. And that was really where I failed. I didn't pay attention to the combat system that much and I really just didn't get to take advantage of it. It has a very good combat system. It was really just my fault that I didn't spend the time to pay attention with it or stick with it through longer. But fortunately, I do hope I can play this game again. I'll start all over, and hopefully I'll really warm up to this battle system soon. Still, I will say that the game has many good qualities that I just absolutely love. One of them being the graphics. I mean, these graphics are absolutely gorgeous. Especially the artwork in this game is just fantastic, especially for the scenery in the game. Not only that, the game also has a pretty interesting story for what I've played through so far, and I really enjoyed the world that you were set in for this game. So while it may seem that the game wasn't really for me, it was still my fault that I didn't pay attention to the combat system, not the game's fault. But if any of these features sound interesting to you, by all means get this game. It is very cheap as of now. Now, the next game I'm about to show you is not just one of my favorite RPGs on the Gamecube, but it's also just one of the most fun and creative games I've ever played in my life, and that is Paper Mario 2: The Thousand Year Door. And Paper Mario 2 was actually my first foray into the series, but believe it or not, I actually played the demo of the game and I didn't enjoy it whatsoever. But for some odd reason, I just decided to get this game, and when I did, I just had an absolute blast with this game. This game was just absolutely amazing. Now, what was so amazing about this game was that you get to go through so many wacky adventures during the course of the game. Like, for example, like Mario will visit a haunted house, he will become a pro wrestler, he gets to fight pirates, he gets to meet the mafia, and he also becomes a detective as well, and just so much more. This game is just so much fun to play through, and there's so much variety in this game. It's just absolutely amazing. Not only that, the game can be very charming and funny as well, and that is really due to the excellent writing the game has. There's no voice acting whatsoever in this game, but the writing is so good you almost forget that. And while the game does have a turn-based combat system, the developers just put enough twists to it to make it feel really engaging and really fresh. The game also has some really interesting puzzles, and also has some platforming elements as well, and they all work really well together. Overall, this isn't just one of my favorite GameCube RPGs, but just one of my favorite GameCube games, one of my favorite Nintendo games, just one of my favorite games of all time. This game does almost everything right. It's one of the best gaming experiences I've ever had, and the game is cheap now, so I highly recommend Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Now it's time to go into game number 4, even though I really don't know why I decided to count now, but still, game number 4 is Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. And Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles is basically Square's take on dungeon crawlers such as Diablo or Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, and for the most part they actually do a pretty good job. While the game does have a lot of good aspects, such as some really good looking graphics, I mean some of these levels are really beautiful to look at, a decent amount of customization, and the fact that the gameplay in general is just a ton of fun. The game does have a couple of big flaws that are worth mentioning. One of those flaws being that the game can be very repetitive. And I know that dungeon crawlers are usually repetitive, which does sound kind of stupid for me to say, but still, I got pointed out there, you will be just doing a lot of just the same stuff over and over again in order just to beat this game. Another flaw, which is probably the game's biggest, is the fact that if you want to play multiplayer, which is one of the game's biggest draws, you can't do it using the standard GameCube controller. Instead, you're actually supposed to connect them using the Game Boy Advances by connecting them to the link cable. And let me just tell you, this completely killed the multiplayer for me because it was just so much more expensive to do so. So I never really got the chance to play multiplayer on this game. And it's probably too late for me to play multiplayer with anyone now, so it was just such a wasted potential. The game could have been so much fun as a multiplayer game, but unfortunately, the game just made it so much harder for you to play multiplayer with your friends. But still, you know, if you can get past these flaws, this game is a whole ton of fun, and again, it's not very expensive as well. So if the game does sound interesting to you, or you're a big fan of dungeon crawlers such as Diablo or Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, by all means, get Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. Now, the next game in my collection is just one of my favorite strategy RPGs of all time, if not my favorite strategy game of all time, and that is Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. Now, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance was actually my first Fire Emblem game ever, and unlike most strategy RPGs, which I feel are like not really too complex, but they always require too much micromanaging or too much just finicking, I feel that Fire Emblem really sort of has that balance between simplicity, yet complexity and micromanaging that makes it really fun to play, but yet at the same time you could really dig deep if you want to. The game just has a ton of missions and almost all of them are very fun and strategic, which a strategy game should be, but the game also has a lot of personality as well, especially from your allies, because many of them have very unique personalities, different clothing styles, etc. And one of the game's main features is the fact that once a character's HP reaches 0, he or she is gone for good. And it's kind of sad to see one of your allies, which you've been pretty attached to throughout the whole game, just die, and then you realize that he or she is just gone for the whole game. Also, this permadeath feature really helps raise the tension in the game that I really don't see in too many strategy RPGs. If I had to pick on the flaws of the game, one of them would be that maybe the graphics could have been better, but the graphics aren't really bad to begin with, so it's not really that much of an issue. Another one you could say would be the fact that the game's story isn't the hottest, but really is not that bad of a story. It's actually a pretty solid story. So the game really doesn't have that many major flaws at all, and I think this game is a very, very solid experience. Now, last but not least is Skies of Arcadia Legends. And Skies of Arcadia was originally a Dreamcast RPG, but they decided to release a director's cut / enhanced edition onto the Gamecube. And let me tell you, this game is really cool. And if you enjoyed games like Dragon Quest VIII with a huge world and charming characters, you'll definitely love what Skies of Arcadia has to offer. Now, instead of just a regular like fantasy world, you're actually a sky pirate and you actually have to take it to the skies. And it really makes for a very fun and interesting world. One cool thing about Skies of Arcadia is that it really does release that inner child in you. While the story can be called cliche as well as the characters, it is still very lighthearted and fun, and it really doesn't hamper the experience as you might think, and you'll honestly have just as much fun as the characters are having in the game. The game in general is just very well made, with some great dungeon designs, a huge world to explore, a lot of side quests, very unique towns, as well as pretty interesting NPCs to meet. The thing is that the game has one problem that'll probably turn away some people, and that is the random encounter rate. Now, the random encounter rate is really high in this game, and this would not be a problem if the battles went by rather quickly, but unfortunately the game doesn't have that fast of a battle system, and it does take a while for a battle to finish, and this will really annoy some people. But if you're able to pass that one problem, as well as cough up enough money to pay off the moderately high price point that they're selling the game now, I do think Skies of Arcadia is well worth the money.
That was easy.
And that is my RPG collection for the GameCube. Hopefully I will be going through other consoles in the meantime, but thank you guys for watching. This video was definitely a lot of hard work. I really worked hard to make this video much better than my others. So again, if you want to say any criticisms, please comment down below. And I don't want to sound like an e-bagger, but if you enjoyed this video, please like it. And if you are new to my channel, please subscribe. It'll really mean a lot to me. And as always, I'm Real Bubble Guys, and peace out.